Hello, and thank you for joining us for Hello Mayor. I'm City of Las Vegas Mayor Carolyn Goodman. Despite our being in the midst of a pandemic, there are exciting things happening in downtown Las Vegas. And we are so proud to have good friend and entrepreneur Circa Las Vegas joining us today. Our fabulous list of hotels and casinos, the Circa vision, hasn't just added excitement, it's helped our community at a time when we've needed it most. So I'm thrilled to have the visionary behind Circa here with me today, Derek Stevens. Hi, Derek. And
Hello, Mayor. Hello, Mayor on Hello, Mayor. I love it.
I love it. I mean, you have just been so exciting, and this is such an exciting time for the city. You know, everybody that looks at you wonders, who are you? Where have you come from? We know Detroit's part of your very soul. But so many watch this and learn so much, especially young people who are looking to, you know, what am I going to do in life? And wow, I'd like to own a hotel. So I want to talk a little bit about the baseball team, but first of all, can you share a little bit about where you come from, what your youth was like, and where did this passion come from?
Sure. I grew up in Metro Detroit, and I was a great athlete in high school, and I quickly realized I was not going to be a great athlete, but I loved sports growing up. And I went to the University of Michigan for my undergrad.
Wow.
And then after that, I worked in a manufacturing company, our manufacturing company in downtown Detroit. And
what did you major in?
My undergrad was in economics.
Okay, there's the business piece.
Yeah.
Okay, math. Okay.
And then I was working in our manufacturing facility in downtown Detroit right after college. And while I was there, I had an opportunity to go to Wayne State University, and I got my MBA at night. And I was able to kind of plow through that when I was a young single kid and get through that pretty quickly. And I worked in automotive manufacturing for quite a while, for a total of 17 years.
Wow.
And then in 2006, my brother and I wanted to diversify.
Older or younger?
My little brother. He's a little taller, but he's a few years younger.
Okay.
And we decided that we wanted to diversify a bit. I ran an investment portfolio for this privately held company, and we thought that Las Vegas would be the right place. Really kind of started off with, when you run an investment portfolio, you want to keep your taxes low. So
right.
No income tax in the state of Nevada. That had a big reason for us coming here. But also really was for me, I love Las Vegas. I'd come here for work, for trade shows, conventions, many times. And then I also came out just for pleasure because I loved coming out to see the big fights. I liked coming out for the football playoffs, big events and things like that. So I always loved Las Vegas. I would say I was probably once every 8-week type of guy that would come out here.
And when did you start coming to visit us? Were you in the college years, or were you already working? And
no, I definitely started coming off in college. Okay. we would take all the guys would pool their money together. One guy would buy a flight, and then we'd all come out and bet football games. So
okay.
So we kind of rotated like that. So yeah, it started really right when I was about 21.
And what were your sports when you said you were a pretty good athlete?
Yeah, I was really making a joke about I was a pretty good athlete. I was a third baseman for high school, and I played center mostly in football, but I didn't last all that long.
I'm married to a center who was really, it amazes me. So at that point, where did the 51s? You did own either all of or a piece of the 51s, correct?
Yeah. So when we came out here.
And for those of you who don't know, that was a baseball team. It was the San Diego Padre Farm Club, or no?
Right. So when we bought into the Golden Gate in 2006,
okay.
It was right at the exact same time we got to meet a handful of people. And, Larry Brown, who at that time was on city council, now Clark
yes.
County Commissioner, he had played for the 51s. He'd been associated with the 51s really since their second season. And the local AAA baseball team was for sale, and we kind of hit it off with a few people, and we ended up purchasing the AAA baseball team. When we purchased it, we were the AAA team for the Dodgers.
Oh,
And then we
Dodgers.
quickly reaffiliated 4 years with the Blue Jays, and then I sold the first year that we were affiliated with the New York Mets.
And wasn't it a fact, and is it still a fact, that if you own a sports team, you are not allowed or are not permitted through the Legislative and Gaming Control Board for operating a gaming establishment?
Yeah, so that's where the transaction was. It was pretty unique. Baseball brought the transaction to us, and my brother and I officially, we only owned the debt of the team. The actual owners of the team were my children, and they were only teenagers, but they were the ones that actually legally owned the team. And then my brother and I, we provided the debt to do the transaction.
And therefore, because they are your children, if in fact you were going into the casino business. All right, so what prompted that? What happened that said that, you know, I have another dream, it's bigger? What is it?
Well, what happened was in 2006, we worked on the deal to purchase 50% of the Golden Gate. By 2008, my brother and I received our first gaming license. And we invested in the Golden Gate and we expanded it. And really what happened in 08 and 09, there was a bit of a decline in the economy. And what happened, there was a big changeover that happened downtown. You know, by about 2009, 2010, the project for the new City Hall was in the works. And then Tony Hsieh decided to move Zappos headquarters to downtown and then moved into the old City Hall. And then you had investments like the Mob Museum, and then you had the Smith Center, and then you had really what happened on Fremont East really take off. So for me, I ended up being in a pretty fortunate situation where I got to meet all these new entrepreneurs. Some were coming in with money, some were coming in with enthusiasm and willing to put sweat equity into deals. And it was really just a great time in Las Vegas to kind of see this new resurgence of Las Vegas. And at that same time, I was learning about the hotel gaming business, about the slot business, the table business, the food and beverage business. And it was just a great time to kind of grow up here in this area that was
and
really...
no interest at that time in the Strip. You wanted to come into the heart, even though I know 2008 was the beginning of the big recession.
Yeah, you know, I always loved Las Vegas, but I really fell in love with downtown Las Vegas in 2008 through 2010. So we wanted to focus our investments here.
Well, and then you started off, I mean, knowing your first appetite was to go ahead and pick up one of the smaller casinos. But I know you ultimately ended up picking up Fitzgerald, which had been Sundance, which had been owned by Mo Dalitz, which for those of you who don't know, way back then, alleged organized crime. And so that ended up becoming the Sundance, which then had to be sold. And then we had our very first ownership of our first African American in gaming in Southern Nevada, Don Barden,
right,
who then put a lot of money into the Fitzgerald, which you took over. What prompted that move?
Well, by 2011, we were my brother and I. We were very focused on wanting to grow the business, and we knew that the Fitzgerald's was coming up for sale, so we reached out and we talked to Don Barden's people, and we were able to work the deal out at that time. We knew that with Fitzgerald's, we wanted to do something that was going to be a complete brand makeover. So this was our first time that we did something. Well, you know, all 34 stories. It's our first big tower, but we renovated all 34 stories and turned it into the D. It took us a couple years to do that, but it was a lot of fun. And
you have a tremendous team. Those legs on that building, you could see coming in by plane. It's the first thing you see as you fly in, drive in. You see those legs, which really pitch to advertisers everywhere. Legs are important, but they're your legs. You started them, right?
Yeah, we sure did.
You have a great advertising crew then too in marketing.
Yeah, they did a great job with that, and yeah, we got a lot of publicity out of it. But it helped kind of set the tone of a complete rebrand.
But you didn't stop there. Then you went ahead and bought the site, and this is a man that when he says he's going to do something, he absolutely does it, and you don't grow old waiting. You then took on the Clark County Courthouse building and put in, everybody said the bottom bid is whatever it was, and all these people were lined up getting all the publicity. They're going to buy it. Who buys it? Who's left standing? Just you. And what was the purpose of now you created a whole new entertainment venue.
Yeah, we wanted to buy. I mean, the Clark County Courthouse wasn't being used, so it kind of hurt the energy of right around downtown. We said, okay, well, if we buy this, maybe we can demolish it. Let's turn this into an event center. And as you know, we've done many concerts, we've done many food festivals, we had UNLV out when you were out for their opening basketball practice.
And that wasn't a idle nothing. Could you explain? You put in what you did, it was awesome.
Yeah, that was a pretty cool event. We had Midnight Madness, the first college basketball practice of that particular year. And UNLV brought their court out, so that was pretty cool.
The entire wood court was brought down to the center.
So really what we wanted to do was we wanted to create this event center that would draw people to downtown through music and food and other types of events. And the first couple years that worked out pretty well. And then we got really, really lucky. What happened was we had this big screen and we decided to play some Vegas Golden Knights hockey games up there. And as you know, the first year was just crazy and the enthusiasm was so high. What it did was it allowed people to come down and be able to root for the home team. And, we were doing, 6,000 to 8,000 people a day on a night to watch the Golden Knights. And it really created this watch party atmosphere. What was really important about that was that in those next couple years, the downtown Las Vegas Event Center is really what we used to model what we did at Circa with Stadium Swim. It's really with our outdoor venue at Stadium Swim with all the pools and the tiered seating and the big screen. A lot of that really evolved off of what we learned at the downtown Las Vegas Event Center.
So what's the future? I mean, we'll get to Circa, and I know we're so passionate about Circa and everything that you've helped create downtown, this new energy. We're doing a lot with KCLV to show what you've created there. But what do you see now at this point, or am I stepping off the cliff here? What are you looking for the event center coming up this season of sports where nobody can go?
Right. Well, a couple things. With what transpired here in 2020, I mean, all outdoor events have been canceled. Right. So what's happened is once things settle back to a little bit more normalcy, we're planning on having events every weekend. In 2019, we did over 120 events in that calendar year at the downtown Las Vegas Event Center. And as soon as we have the go-ahead and things, like I said, get back to normal, we plan on doing that again. From watch parties, concerts. The demand for concerts right now is so tremendous. People want to get out of the house, listen to music, have a couple drinks, have some food, and have some fun. So as soon as we can, we'll be ready to roll.
So what you're doing there, and having been there so many times for these wonderful events, you have opened it for free to the public to come down, and then there are places you can get a drink or food or something.
Yeah, every event's a little bit different. For the Golden Knights, for our watch parties, and for all of our Raiders watch parties that we did, they've always been free events. Yeah, but then you can get something to drink or eat, what have you. For the concerts, they're ticketed events, so it kind of depends who the band is that's playing and what day of the week and all that. But yeah, it's a great I think it's a great community asset where people can really come together, and it's a place where I think people have had a lot of fun. And boy, I'll tell you, this community, the country needs to have a lot more fun. Hopefully, we can get some of this behind us and
yeah. But I think even now, I think the residents for sure, and we know some of our neighboring state residents still keep coming in here because this pandemic has just overwhelmed everybody, and the depression and the need to get back to a life. And of course, we've been crying to let us just go ahead. This is a health issue and it needs to be treated as such. And we've gone back through history. Fortunately, most of the world is younger than I am, but I remember all the times that we had some major issue in health. Now let's talk a little bit about, you started to gobble up, it was like Pac-Man, watching you with the hotels, Glitter Gulch, Mermaids. Now, were those the Las Vegas Club? Were those all operated, owned by Herb Pastor and his team? Or were you having to go after each different owner to put together the piece you wanted?
Yeah, so we purchased the Las Vegas Club. That was August of 2015, and we purchased the Vegas Club from Poyu and Tamaris,
Right.
Jonathan Jossel, and that purchase was about half of the city block between Main Street and First, between Ogden and Fremont Street. Right. So that was about half the block. And originally, when we purchased the Vegas Club, we were doing an evaluation on whether we were going to renovate the property or not.
It had been closed, right?
It had been closed,
non-functioning. No part of it. The casino was operative.
No. Nothing was closed. We purchased at an asset sale. So Jonathan closed the casino, and then 1 minute after he closed it, we ended up purchasing the property. So the first, I'd say, 8 months when I talked to you about it at the time, we're evaluating doing a renovation. But then a couple of other things happened. And the big one was that I had reached out to Steve Bernstein, and obviously son of her pastor, and I said, Steve, now that we purchased the Vegas Club, what are your thoughts about La Bayou and Mermaids and Glitter Gulch? Because this has been in his family for decades, forever. And he said, my youngest is off to college here this fall. And I think I'm going to spend most of my time out of town, and I think it's the right time for me to sell. I was very surprised. I mean, obviously you have no control when you're a potential acquirer. When the owner owns something, if they didn't want to sell, and I didn't think that was going to happen, but I made the call, and he said, "Yeah, I think it's time." And it took us about a year, but we worked the deal out.
Which is incredible, because I know Steve, or knew him somewhat, and her pastor, everybody in that, and he was tough. And I never in a million years thought you would succeed in that. That's an incredible purchase, being able to get all those pieces.
Yeah, it was really something where the stars kind of aligned on that. And then that got us to the point where we had almost the whole city block. But then another element occurred, which is really unbelievable when you think of the odds of this. We decided to make a call. There was one small T-shirt shop. I think it had about a 10-foot frontage, and it went from Fremont Street halfway up the block. And we worked with Todd Kessler and others and said, let's see what we could do. And the individual that owned that property also owns a few other properties up and down Fremont Street. And at that moment in time, he was closing on another property, the one on the corner of Sahara and Las Vegas Boulevard, the world's largest gift shop. So we talked to Haim Gabay, and I said, Haim, what's the chance of selling this? And I think he said, I'm the last one here on this city block. I said, yeah. So Haim did real well, but he did us a great favor as well. And for him, he was able to use a 1031 exchange and use some of the funds that we spent with him on buying this 10-foot T-shirt shop to help buy the world's largest gift shop. And then we had the whole city block. And this is the first city block in the casino corridor that's owned fee simple, where we own our own dirt. There's no ground leases. Wow. So when that happened, that opened up the door to potentially getting some financing, and there was a little more interest when you own your own dirt.
Now, are you able, because you own the dirt, could you privatize that part of the Fremont Street experience, or no?
Well, that's something I think
I'm saying you could, because I know for years we talked about how do we keep it safer,
Yep.
and we thought about here at the city and during Oscar's term, how do we keep it genuinely, truly safe for everybody and have a control? And we were then advised by our city attorney, longtime Brad Jerbick, who said, you cannot imagine, Mayor, how many owners there are, and we can never get them together. Yep. You had gone ahead then through that and made it possible.
Yeah, so the way the ground rights work, they work to the middle of the street.
Okay.
If you own both sides of the street, so yeah, there's a few things that we're working on.
Okay, so I just knowing you, but as you're going about, before you got to the point that you got the T-shirt shop and you were moving along with Steve Bernstein, where were you up here? What were you, I mean, knowing your energy, and I don't sleep much, but I think you sleep less, because the brain is always working. What were you thinking at that time? Were you thinking Circa already? What were you thinking?
When we were able to purchase, Bayou Glitter Gulch, Mermaids, and then the T-shirt shop, that's when things really changed. That's when we thought, okay, now we've got a piece of property that I thought, my father's an architect. When I brought him out here, I go, look at this, and he said, you know what, this might be the most significant piece of property in Las Vegas history, because it's on Fremont Street, and you have 24 million people walking up and down the street, and the location, it's under the canopy. You got easy access to the highways. And my dad's really the one saying, hey, you got to think a little bit bigger. You got something real special here. So at that point, I reached out to Boyd Gaming, to Steve Thompson, and I said, hey, Steve, this piece of property that Boyd owns between Main Street and Plaza, what's the chance of selling that to us? Because if you would do that, that changes the scope of what we could build here on what's now the block of Circa. If I could put a parking area and a transportation hub across Main Street. So I went through with Steve, and then he talked to Bill Boyd and talked to Keith Smith, and I told them what we were going to do if we could get this. And they made a determination that by us building what's now Garage Mahal, that would be good for Boyd Gaming. It'd be good for everybody downtown. And it was actually a pretty easy sell because I think they were very excited about having some capital coming in, and they sold us the property. So that's the property that turned into Garage Mahal and the transportation hub for all of downtown. And that's what really set the wheels in motion to be able to build Circa. That's when we knew we had transportation and parking covered across the street, and then we had this whole city block to really start going at it. And that's when we really started working with Paul Steelman, who's going to be up here shortly, about, hey, Paul, when we were working with Paul just prior to us getting the space for Garage Mahal. So he was right there when we kind of finalized the last part of this deal, and then we were able to concept a lot out, and then we let the professionals like Paul and his team really design it.
And your father, obviously, so influential for you and that whole design, creative piece of what you feel inside. I mean, it is amazing to us as we're mentored growing up how we become who we are and what we do. So you're a creative person, certainly an innovator. You are a risk taker, and if anybody belongs in Las Vegas, it's you, because you have to be a risk taker to survive here, and then to know this is where all the roads come together. We have everything from ours. The spaghetti bowl is where everything pulls together. So how fabulous you're located there. Now tell me about how did you think of, or you already mentioned you were involved with Paul Steelman, who is a name that has been around this town a long time. Did that come from your father? Did he know about him, or you just through your own?
No, what we did was we did kind of a design concept review, and we engaged with, I believe, 5 architectural firms. We said it wasn't necessarily a design bid; it was something for their creative resources to go at it. So we paid all 5 firms, and we said, if you had this city block, what would you design? And we said, like, if you have some elements that we really like, we may incorporate them, but you may not become the architect of record.
Okay.
So we wanted to pay them for their thoughts, their creativity, and
You're so fair too. It's awesome to me.
So we paid everybody, and there's probably a little bit of everything in this, and then we determined which architectural firm we wanted to work with, and on that process, obviously, Paul Steelman and his team won. I like the fact that Paul was local, and as opposed to having, we had these meetings every week and didn't want to have to fly out, and this was kind of before the Zoom era, so we didn't want to have to fly out to Phoenix or LA all the time, so we really liked the fact that he was local. I love the fact that Paul hit it home with me by saying, for me, my career really started when I worked with Steve Wynn, and I designed now what's an older tower at the Golden Nugget. He goes, and I spent a lot of time in Europe, a lot of time in the Far East, and for me, my whole career's coming around. I love the fact that I could do a project like this in downtown Vegas where I started. It's going to keep me at home, sleeping in his home bed more often. I mean, because I think Paul probably spent 6 months out of a year sleeping out of hotel rooms, like all over the world. And for him, he said, it's going to allow me to be home a little bit more, and this is kind of a passion project to me. So I think we picked the right architectural firm.
You absolutely did, and the excitement of it all. I mean, there's so many hours. I have so many questions to ask you. I know we're limited on time, and it's wonderful that Paul Steelman is joining us. But at the point, who is your sounding board? I mean, you have to be. You're so full of this energy and this. You listen, you hear, you see, but you have to be. Do you talk to the mayor? Who do you talk to?
Well, we have, I'd say, we have a pretty good base of our team, and our team really, we've always felt that we spend a lot of hours on our properties. We spend a lot of time on Fremont Street, a lot of people downtown, and I've always felt that our team really knows the market, knows our customer. Maybe better than others that may have worked out of state at a regional market or maybe on the Strip or in a locals area, that we really kind of focused in our team, and I really thought our team was the right one. We didn't need a big focus group. We didn't want to have a focus group, and we all kind of grew up. As gamblers as well. Our chief operating officer, his father was a bookmaker. Myself, I'd come out here, betting on things. We really kind of grew up as people that loved Las Vegas, and we loved it because we were gamblers, and we loved the scene. And I always thought this team we put together are really all like that, and we didn't really need to go off and ask 10 different focus groups what they wanted. We kind of know what we wanted.
Which is beautiful, and it's just been so incredibly fabulous to have Derek here and telling us. And we just talked about architect Paul Steelman, who's been behind some of the amazing hotels and casinos you've stepped inside over the years. And when we come back, he'll be joining us to talk a little bit about building Circa and the upcoming Resorts World. We'll be back.
Finding parking in downtown Las Vegas is easy thanks to the new Park Me app. The free app makes it possible for you to find parking before you even leave your home. Just download the app directly to your iPhone or Android and let Park Me help park you. You'll find the best spot for the best price and never waste time driving around looking for a parking spot again. So next time you're heading to the downtown area, let Park Me do the work and see how easy parking can be. Coming soon, you'll also be able to pay for parking from your mobile device.
Welcome back, everyone. From Las Vegas to Macau, architect Paul Steelman's talent can be found across the globe. Here in Las Vegas, he's worked on some extraordinary projects and continues to help build future projects for us all. Thank you so much for joining us, Paul. I can't believe it. I've lived here so long, but he's been here a long time too. Our world traveler and genius architect. So welcome, and I know you're part of Derek's family, so we're going to have at it. But first, a little bit. Tell me, where were you born and raised?
Thank you, Mayor, for having me here today. It's an honor for me to be here. It's an honor also to be speaking to you. I mean, after 27 or 28 years of Goodman leadership in the city of Las Vegas. I remember when I moved here in 1986. I lived in the Golden Nugget for a year, and downtown. What a transformation it has been since the last 34 years. Most of it under you and your husband's leadership.
Where were you born? In this country?
I was born in Atlantic City, New Jersey. Oh. That's how I got started in this crazy business, and. I went to, my father was an architect in Atlantic City, and I worked for him since I was a little tiny guy, if you can ever believe that. And I went to Clemson University, South Carolina, who we've always been very successful against Michigan.
You got yourself a few quarterbacks, let me tell you, recently.
Yes. And then I was very fortunate when I graduated college that I met a guy named Joel Bergman and Steve Wynn. and I started to work directly for Steve at the Golden Nugget Atlantic City. And in 1985, he knocked on my door and he said, Paul, why don't you move to Las Vegas? I said, well, yes. And I did. I moved to Las Vegas, moved my family, my young family at that time, and I have never looked back. I mean,
Isn't
it's
that
just a
simply
fantastic
incredible?
place to live, and it is the greatest city in the world. There's no
So
doubt about it.
commonality already, two fathers architects.
Yes.
Both your father
Yeah, that's true.
and yours.
That's true.
And so, you know, there's something absorbs through the family. The genes, that we know that in sports for sure, but actually the passions and interests. So tell us, when did you decide that you were going to start talking to Paul about your plans and your dreams?
Yeah, we had this opportunity for a number of architectural firms to come out and design what they thought would work within this city block in downtown Las Vegas. And Paul's firm did that, and we really had more of an opportunity to get to know Paul and his team. And then that's when we determined that we wanted to work with Steelman and Associates to do this project. We then spent an awful lot of time together concepting, and I was explaining a little bit what I wanted to do from an economic perspective, and then he was really interpreting it and putting it into a graphic form. And I think you said, Paul, we spent more time on designing a porte cochere than any project that you've ever dealt with in your career.
That is true, Derek. That's true.
We ended up, at that point, we ended up having the ability to utilize the property we purchased from Boyd, and that's really where Garage Mahal kind of came from, and Paul really took it from there.
So well, first of all, on a scale of 1 to 10, knowing you've worked with some pretty heavy people in life, how easy was it to work with Derek? Since the building's built, I don't worry about his getting a future job.
Yeah,
I
that's
mean,
funny.
really, considering all the projects you've been on.
Well, we've always thought Las Vegas has been created by a group of mavericks. The accountants and lawyers aside that have graduated into some of these positions, I mean, I look at my experience with Steve Wynn as a special time in my life. I look at Saul Kersner that I did projects for in Africa as a special time. A person that everybody rallies around. Everybody, the staff, the architects, everybody rallies around. The creators of Las Vegas, the mavericks, I call them, of Las Vegas. And Derek is, as far as I'm concerned, the next Steve Wynn here. I even told Steve Wynn that, and when I Zoom called the sports book, he says, Paul, it's the biggest I've ever seen. He says, but they don't really make any money. I said, that's not true, Steve, not today. And he wanted me to give his sincere congratulations to Derek. What a fine job Derek did. But I loved working with Derek. I loved working with Greg. They have the perfect harmony. Greg is an engineer. Derek is, of course, a creator, a dreamer, a guy who has a business plan that everybody loves. And the two of them, one of my favorite stories that I tell is, I think Circa is the only casino that I've designed, other than in Finland, that air conditions from the floor. Because in Finland it's required, it's a lot cleaner air. But Greg, Derek's brother, insisted upon this way of air conditioning the project. And consequently, not only in these unusual times that we have this beautiful opening, we also have an opening of a casino that is much different, much cleaner, much more friendlier to everything around. And but working with Derek was a joy of my life, no doubt.
And I think you stand alone. I've known Steve Wynn since before Oscar and I moved here in '64, and you do stand alone. And what was the most challenging piece of building Circa for you, and what was it, Paul, as you've done, how many hotels have you done?
Well, our resume says 3,000 all over the world. Now, not all 3,000 got built. And today we're currently working on 25 active projects throughout the world, from Cambodia, building the biggest building in Cambodia, 4,000 rooms for Dr. Chen, to inspire Greece, where we will build the first high-rise, the first integrated resort in Athens. And we all do it from here, from Las Vegas. You've been in my office. So
yes, and it is a remarkable treat. But what for you made you lose some sleep that was a challenge that you were seeing in the hotel, that there was a mirror here?
Well, I would say we were fortunate putting together this real estate assemblage. And I've said it a couple times, this was like a 1 in a million shot to be able to put this real estate assemblage together with dirt that's been owned for 100 years, multiple decades of generations of people. So I think didn't really realize initially when that happened how fortunate we were to be able to put that together and get those deals done. From a construction perspective, I would say this was the first time that I had to go out to New York. I had to do my first set of road shows, and that was a learning experience. And we tried to enjoy it as best we could. So that was.
What do you mean? So for the public to understand what you mean by a road show, what did you have to do?
Well, we had to go out to New York, and we had to get some financing to help build this project. And as part of that, you have to go through an educational process for the potential lenders. And when I said, I want to build the world's largest sports book, and I want to build this concept, it's going to be a multi-tiered pool aqua theater that's going to do 4,000 people. All I ever got was, well, wait a second, there's only what, 500 keys? This will never work. So that was a little bit of a tough sell. So we ended up putting a little more equity into this deal than I think most people did. But I felt comfortable with it because I feel very comfortable with what our business plan is. I feel comfortable who our customer is. And I would say that the road show was probably the one thing on this journey that was most unique to me. And then number two was, March 18th when Las Vegas shuts down. And, in the middle of this project that we're 4 years into this, 4.5 years into this, you get thrown a curveball like this, and how do you react? And I think, Trey Builders, who was our project manager, McCarthy, did a great job. They came up with this idea of saying, hey, let's not lay off all this construction team here. We can't get people up the construction elevators, but let's let them focus in on the first 5 floors, on the podium, and I bet we can open up early. So then that quickly got me on the horn, called the chairwoman of the Gaming Control Board, Sandra Douglas, asking for a waiver. Hey, can we open Circa early before the hotel, 8 weeks early, to get that approval? And then they worked through that and said yes.
And how many were you keeping employed at a time where our people were beginning to starve and lose businesses, and we needed to keep everybody away?
Yeah, I think we peaked out around 1,300 workers a day during the whole summer when everything else was shut down.
Yeah. I mean, that you kept going through that, it just broke my heart, because the mayor's office gets nothing but calls of people in tragic situations, and to keep so many employed with the hope of something else coming. So your biggest challenge in his dream building there, what was the biggest? Well, the Garage Mahal will allow that to be part of it. That's a pretty cool place.
Yeah, the Garage Mahal. It took me 3 presentations to Derek to get the Garage Mahal in some sort of shape that it could be a transportation center. We always know that transportation is 75% of the decision making when people visit a casino. And so we wanted to have that downtown, because downtown's garages, I just parked in a garage I designed in 1986. It's a little old, the Golden Nugget garage. But our biggest challenge was, our business is not based on the beauty of the building or the beauty of the interiors as much as it is based on the success of the project. In order for any project to be successful, it has to cost the right amount of money. And we always harken back to the Mirage. The Mirage, if you accelerate inflate the cost of the Mirage, and Steve Wynn's tremendous success there, it costs less than $400 per square foot. And we wanted Derek to realize his dream for the appropriate budget. And that is our biggest challenge. It's easy to do a very, very fancy place that everybody walks in and goes, wow. It's pretty difficult to get that magic soup where you're trying to do a place that everybody says, wow, but then is extremely profitable. And that's our biggest challenge with Derek, as it is with many projects that we work on.
Well, and two, the sustainability of something to keep the people coming in. I mean, certainly what I see is that ingenuity that created the pools and the sports up there to keep people coming down. There's another piece to all of this was getting the word out. And we know word of mouth's tremendous, but you've seen a lot of marketing for your hotels. And how does that fit in here?
I told Angelo when we were waiting in the green room, I said, I thought the commercial was the best commercial I have seen since the Andre Bocelli commercial for Bellagio in 1999.
Yeah.
I thought that commercial was absolutely incredible. It is the way how you get the word out today, and I was very impressed with that.
And your thought too, very briefly, because I know we're going to lose you in a few seconds, about the 21 and older generation. You said this is a hotel casino for 21-year-olds and up. So your first reaction to that from what you were designing, I'm sure that made a difference. You didn't have to do with the little people.
Yes, it wasn't actually part of the original design criteria, but we do believe that is very prudent for Las Vegas. I never forget when Steve Wynn tripped over a baby carriage, a stroller at Treasure Island, and said, "I got to get these kids out of here." So I mean,
wasn't he the first though to really pursue the family?
He was the first mayor to pursue the family and the first to get rid of it. So I mean, is one of those things.
Well, and your feeling, had you ever felt that Circa or what you were building was going to be family-oriented or not? And as briefly as you can, tell me why.
No, I mean, I think a lot of people, when they first heard that we were 21 and over, they quickly thought, well, what's going on? Is this a XXX place? Like, no, no, you're missing the point. What it is really simply twofold. Number one, it comes down to when someone's spending their weekend with us and they've got their kids at home and they have grandma and grandpa watching the kids, and they put a lot of time and effort to come here. They don't necessarily want to go out to a pool and get splashed by somebody else's kids. They kind of want to have more an adult orientated weekend. Number two, what a lot of people don't realize is that we did a quick study, and when you think about the number of times an individual that works for us at a blackjack game, at a dice table, at a bar or restaurant has to ID somebody, we came up with a number that we thought it was going to be about 7,600 ID checks per day on average.
Wow.
Average ID checks 15 seconds. So let's just say randomly, you have a bachelorette party that walks up to a bar, and you have 8 girls, and they all order a drink. Well, the bartender has to ID everybody. That's 2 minutes. Well, what happens is you might have another group behind them. You might have just a couple of guys that want to buy a couple bottles of Budweiser quickly, but the time it takes to serve someone stacks up. So what we thought is we ID everyone at our doors coming in. We could provide a much better customer experience. And for us, we thought that if we give up some potential hotel revenue, it's worth the trade-off to create a superior customer service element. So now I never need to have training for all of our dealers to know what 50 different state IDs look like and which ones are valid and which passports are good. And same thing at our bartenders and things like that, because they know that everyone inside is over 21. You don't have to go through that process. So we think it provides a superior customer service component to when people are visiting us.
Well, I just, we're going to have to take a break, but Derek, I want to thank you. The genius and the depth to which everybody in this hotel, in this whole complex, has to be thought through. I mean, I never even gave that a thought at the time, but you have touched every single piece of this. And so I can't thank you enough for joining us. I hope you'll be back because I know fabulous things. I want to talk about the future, and with this man, you stand on your own, believe me. And Steve Wynn did such a wonderful job for us all those years, creative and just special. but right here. This is a unique, wonderful individual, and with your brother have done so many wonderful things. So we'll be right back. We're going to take a brief break, and then we're going to get really into some more wonderful concepts with Paul Steelman. Thank you. Welcome back, everyone, and we have got the great Paul Steelman here. I don't want to lose 1 minute of time with him and just want to roll with this. We have so many things to talk about, but let's hear about some of the projects that you have underway and what's going on. I got a couple of specific questions.
Oh, that's fine, Mayor. Yeah, we are, Las Vegas continues to be Las Vegas. I mean...
is that good?
Yes, it is good. KT Lim told me, the owner of Genting and the owner of Resorts World, he said, one thing's for sure, as we go through history, Paul, as the time goes on, Las Vegas will always be there, will always be Las Vegas, will always be the center of entertainment of America. As you know, we have Resorts World. We're the architect and partially the interior designer for that project, and have been since Mayor Oscar Goodman came to our opening, our announcement in 2013. And of course the project has gone through many design variations, budgeting and things of this nature. Of course the project will be spectacular when it all opens, and I'm not at liberty to say too much what goes into it, although they do release a rendering once in a while, as they did last week, of some of the nightclub features that they're going to have, which will be very spectacular. Of course, it has multiple hotels within it, and it will have a palace hotel, which we designed, or a high-level luxury hotel. And it is a multi-function sort of property that will basically offer everything to almost every single type of customer. KT Lim is probably one of the most unique men, and I think I'd love to have him on your show when he would reappear back in Las Vegas.
Okay, we would love that.
KT runs the famous Genting Highlands, and he has such a unique perspective on entertainment in the world.
What's his background?
KT Lim, through his father, developed Genting Highlands, and then KT, when he took over for the family business, developed it into the juggernaut it is today. Of course, it owns Star Cruise Lines, it owns the Crystal Cruise Lines. He has multiple casino projects. And let me tell you, he is a fascinating man. And one of the things during our design that KT insisted upon was showing Steve Wynn. KT is a very, very respectful man, as respectful of our government, respectful of the people here, and respectful of the people, the dreamers of this community.
I want to hear when he first contacted you. And were you sure with whom you were speaking? When was that? When he first reached out?
Yes. During the financial depression of 2008, of course, there was this abandoned project in Las Vegas called Echelon. And through a meeting that I had with his brother, Chihuahua, Chihuahua had interest in developing with his brother this particular project, if it could be purchased for the right price. And I knew of him, of course. I had met him several times in the past. I've always been very impressed with him and his sons, Yui and Louie now, who are part of the family business. And I was blessed to have that meeting and was able to secure that contract.
So you must have been sort of excited of the possibilities of a future there. How many acres is that now inclusive?
I believe it's 83 and some percent acres. It's a very large piece of property. It's probably the second largest property on the Strip, Circa's being the largest. And I think that what you'll see when you when it opens in 2021, you'll see only just the beginning of it, because KT and his team wish to keep expanding it and adding entertainment features, additional hotels, and all sorts of things as the business increases. And of course, its connection to what I call the Tesla tunnel, the boring tunnel, and its relationship to the convention center is going to be very powerful.
So that is something. So tell me a little bit. I grew up in the heart of New York City. Subways were part of my life. Knowing the Boring Company and this initial concept is just single, one tunnel each way for small vehicles, but I'm sure that is just initial. So tell us a little bit about your thoughts there.
I think the Boring Company, or what I call the Tesla tunnel, will take Las Vegas to be the first 5G city in America. The fact that you can order on your phone a Tesla, get in by yourself or with your family, and take this Tesla ride, it will be, minutes between major stops, say Luxor and Resorts World or Luxor and downtown. The cars will go underground at 90 miles an hour. The tunnel is very special. It's a simple idea, and it's like, why didn't anybody do this before? But once we have a connected city that is connected, not in the traffic in the streets, but below ground, this connected city, I called it the other day when somebody was asking me, after I had visited it, I said, it's Beam Me Up Scotty from Star Trek. Sure. It's virtually going to be that, because at 1 second, you're going to be able to say, I'm at Resorts World, and I want to go to Luxor, and virtually do it. And virtually be there in a minute or two. When downtown gets connected to the Strip, gets connected to the convention center, oh my gosh, it will be a revelation for the ability here. What did Disney do in all the parks? Connected them all together with sky trams and boats and you name it. This will be how Las Vegas will take its next step in tourism. And it's a fascinating.
Well, it's exciting
adventure.
And futuristic, and I think the reason the monorail wasn't successful was it didn't connect the airport to the downtown, and hopefully all of this, and its preliminary planning, certainly. How many hotels have you been involved in? I'm curious.
Yeah. Well, in Las Vegas, of course, I've worked for many of the greats in Las Vegas, and
Can you pick them off from the South End? Just which hotels have you been involved in?
From the South End. We've done many renovations at Mandalay Bay over the years. We did the theme park and the interiors with Henry Conversano, the MGM Grand. Of course, I was fortunate enough to work with Steve Wynn, Henry Conversano, Joel Bergman on the Mirage, and then on Treasure Island. We, believe it or not, I had a great experience working with Bob Stupak on Vegas World. Bob was an incredible guy as far as I was concerned. Of course, I worked downtown here at the Golden Nugget, then Circa, then Resorts World, and of course there are others. Frank Modica at Showboat was one of my favorites to work for. And we worked for Showboat, and we've done work for Frank Fertitta at Stations. And Las Vegas is blessed to have such a great group of mavericks.
How much time are you traveling? Are you home a little bit? Obviously doing Circa, hopefully you had more time here, but the number of hotels you've helped to create, design, or work on throughout the world, is there a country where you have not been in design?
Yes, there are a few states that I've not been in design.
Tell us. I need
obviously,
to know.
we haven't built a casino in Utah.
Okay,
So we've always wanted to build one in Hawaii, but we've never been able to do that. I used to travel approximately 180 days a year. We do have 25 active, very large projects in Vietnam, Cambodia, and in Europe, and Greece.
Right now,
yes,
25 active.
25 active gaming projects.
Because of technology, you don't always have to be on the plane now, right?
That's true. That's true. But still, my customers, the sessions that we had with Derek and his team were marvelous. And you need that. You need that dreaming together sort of thing. I'm not sure that Zoom and all these things are are the appropriate venue for all that, as far as I'm concerned. But be that in may, I have enjoyed living all this year in Las Vegas, and my family has enjoyed it, and my daughter has enjoyed it. And
Is she into architecture?
she worked at Circa. As I started my career with Joel Bergman in 1978,
And
I graduated from college in '77, and my first job was the Gold Nugget. And when she moved back,
Now, where were you? What college did you go to? And did you study architecture?
Yes, I went to Clemson University. I studied.
Right,
I'm on the
we'd
board, the
mentioned
Clemson Architectural Board today as an advisor of sorts, and I think it's one of the greatest schools in America as far as architecture
Do you
goes.
sit in advisory capacity in our graduate school here at the University of Nevada?
I have been asked several times, but no, I do not.
Because I don't have the time.
Well, anyway, I was instrumental in making sure that way back when, 25 plus years ago, that they received their accreditation at UNLV. Because the accreditation in UNLV was important for every architect in this valley. And I assisted with that way back when, because I realized that this would be something. And a funny thing, the head of the accreditation board was one of my professors at Clemson University, and he came to my office, stood up there, and looked out over the whole office, the 40,000 square feet, and said, "Paul, what are you doing here?" I mean, it's just incredible. So, but we've been very fortunate that, Mayor, this new financing that is coming along, you've seen it, the SPAC financing. Jim Murin just issued a SPAC. There's other ones that are in consideration today.
Can you, in a nutshell, tell our audience what
Sure.
the SPAC is?
A SPAC is a special purpose operating company, which allows for people to invest in you, not necessarily a project, but in Jim Murin's case, they invest in Jim or the other casino executives around that have retired and are bored and want to do something. And we have so many of them in Las Vegas.
Yes.
And so consequently, we have designed over the last, through the COVID period, approximately $7 billion worth of buildings that are unannounced at this time. And after Circa opened, we had our first inquiries downtown. That in our, other than Circa, we had our first inquiries downtown of, how can I get involved? How can I be a part of this?
Isn't that phenomenal?
You know, Mayor, I take many of my foreign guests up to Adiamo's for dinner. It gives a Las Vegas feeling, a Las Vegas style. And I walked them down Fremont Street. They always turned to me and they said, "Paul, I want this.
Oh,
I want
you know,
Fremont Street."
Paul, it's such an honor to have you here.
Thank you.
I hope you'll come back. We're out of time, and we're just getting started. And oh my goodness, when you just made that last comment, I want to just go a little further. But you have given us so much joy and so much pride in this community for all that you've helped to create and taken a leadership role. Your daughter, your family, your father. Anybody that's touched you must be very proud of all that you've made a difference for. And I can't tell you how proud we are. Just, I know Oscar and I speak about you all the time and talk about your genius and how you managed to do so much over the world. Thank you so much for being here, and thank you at home for watching. We'll see you next time for another episode of Hello Mayor. Have a great day, everyone.